When the United Nations voted recently on whether to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the vote was pretty overwhelming. But some countries abstained, especially in Africa. True, Nigeria and Kenya voted against Russia, but altogether 18 other African countries refused to condemn Russia, including South Africa. Why? I turned to Beverly Ochieng of BBC Monitoring's Africa service in Nairobi.
Russia has been making inroads in the region, whether it's through defense or diplomacy or media, and there was this fear, perhaps by diplomats, of compromising that growing relationship.
But there's also the issue of gold, isn't there? Gold that Russia is hoovering up in various countries in Africa and taking it back, which protects it against the sanctions that the Western countries are imposing.
A lot of commentary does look at the fact that Russia's relationship with various countries, whether it's Sudan, where it is establishing a naval base, and also in part of the gold mining industry, or the CAR, where it has established mercenary presence in some of the gemstone mining sites, or even speculation in Mali that Russia could be getting concessions from some of the gold wealth, that Russia's relationship with African countries is extractive and exploitative. But there is some growing support in many urban areas. We've seen pro-Russia protests, specifically at the time when the conflict broke out in Ukraine. Part of it could be because of this perception that Russia is not just the antithesis of the West, but it's bringing a sort of, it's liberating African countries from Western support or from Western sort of dependency, giving defense agreements. It is giving arms to African countries. The biggest purchaser of arms from Russia is Africa. And much of this is coming without the peg of, concerns about human rights. It's very affordable, it's very available, and the arrangements that come with it are ultimately very questionable, but it suits some of the people who are in power. For instance, in Sudan, where you have the Deputy General who has been a proponent of Russia or Russian presence in the mining industry as well as in defense.
And there is an element of anti-Western feeling, a sense that Russia is not a colonial power.
Technically, Russia did not colonize any African states. And even during the time, the Cold War and the post-independence movement, Russia was credited with being able to still give some sort of diplomatic, economic, as well as security support to emerging governments. There were lots of exchanges at the time. There were educational exchanges. A number of leaders, if you look at the Mozambican leaders or even in Southern Africa, key leaders did study in Moscow and came back and have been embedded in government institutions for a long time. So there was a way that it played a positive role at that time in strengthening some of the elements that enabled governance in African countries, and at the same time presenting a different force compared with the West.
Do you feel that the Russian position is making progress in Africa as a whole, or have the pictures that we've all seen from Ukraine rather given Russia a push back?
It feels as though Putin is both trying to show himself, not just against the West, but also to show that there is some influence within the African continent. It's a continuation of these historic links, this sort of sentimentalism that comes from post-independence or the Cold War movement, and showing there's some sort of economic benefit, even though it's seen to be exploitative, and also sort of entrenching a foothold, whether it's in the defense sector, and showing that it is or it can be a reliable partner.
The war in